Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of Jungian Ever After, a podcast about myths and fairy tales through the lens of Jungian analysis. I am your host, Raisa, and joining me, as always, is my co-host and Jungian analyst, Dr. Adina Davidson. This is the second of our three-part series on parenting and individuation in Greek mythology. Last episode, we looked at how Agamemnon, an archetypal father and king, made the wrong sacrifice. He sacrificed his child rather than his own desire for glory and admiration, with catastrophic results, I think we can quite firmly say. Now, what can you tell our listeners about what they should expect out of this second part of the series, Adina?
So in this episode, we're going to revisit the themes of sacrifice, love, or lack thereof, and individuation, and how parenting acts as a crucible for these issues. We will look at the archetypal pattern of a mother, in this case, Medea, who sacrifices her child.
I think this is one that there's a visceral reaction to even just hearing what it's about, right? A mother is sacrificing her child. There's a great, I think, mini-series called The 10th Kingdom, wherein the sort of evil queen of that series, unsuccessfully, but part of her story is that she, before leaving her husband, tried to drown the main character, her daughter, Virginia, in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in sort of shame and horror, she runs away, and that's how she ends up in this kingdom where all the fairy tales are real but dark, and gets enmeshed with the evil sorceress of that world. And in that case, it being unsuccessful, I think
it eases it a little bit.
It eases it. But here, where it is successful, even without being described in gory detail, there's this visceral response.
Yeah. I have a couple of things that I'm thinking about with that. The first is, as you and I were just talking, there's so few myths or fairy tales where it is the mother who is murderous towards her child. The evil stepmother or the father, fathers killing their daughters in particular, is rampant through myth and fairy tale. But a mother who kills her child is very rare. And I think it is because of that deep horror that we have towards this possibility. The other thing that I'm thinking about is when you and I were eating lovely snacks and going through the play and trying to find the parts that you were going to enact for the show, and how even in that setting where it was clearly had nothing to do with, where we were essentially engaging in an academic exercise of picking out what parts were going to make the most sense to the reader and help string the story together without it taking 3 hours. Both of us got choked up at points.
Yeah.
Both of us physically pulled away from the material and found it unbearably sad.
Yeah. And I think it's because it feels so unnatural. I think as terrible as it is for a father to, enact violence upon their children, I think there is sort of this, look at the animal kingdom, there's the stud, they're the one who's...
if you look at the mammalian world, male lions eat their young if they're not sure that they're theirs.
Right.
Males are aggressive to babies all the time.
But the mother always knows they're hers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no escaping that. And so that's why it's such a common thing of the man saying, oh, well, that's not my child. And they should be grateful I'm looking after them at all, if that's the case. Or wrongly saying it's not their child because they see the child as some kind of failure. I think there's so many iterations of that.
And I'm really reluctant to say this. So maybe archetypally, because of that, there is more distance between the masculine and the child than there is the feminine and the child. And maybe it is more contra-instinctual for the feminine to be violent or murderous to the child.
Although I would say that doesn't mean that we couldn't evolve differently, right? That we couldn't overcome that.
Clearly.
Institute a new normal.
We have Medea and we have women who kill their children and they are in the news. And of course, thank God, we have many, 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 many loving fathers who protect and adore their children. And we're a fairly flexible species. And so we have fathers who are the primary parents. It's not at all uncommon. And it doesn't seem to have any problematic impact on anybody's development. Again, back to Jung, we all have all the archetypes.
I guess what I'm thinking is that we know these archetypes as they are, and they've been around a long time. But I guess maybe this is me being an outsider here coming in, but I feel like there's no reason that if it's all a collective unconsciousness, there's no reason that those archetypes couldn't evolve.
I think the theory that I subscribe to, because that's a huge debate in the Jungian world, is that the archetype itself is fundamentally unknowable to us, but the archetypal image does evolve and does change with our cultural, historical, and personal circumstances.
Interesting. Well, now that we've thrown out casually a completely debatable topic, I'll go ahead and read the play. And I will say, if you feel this is going to be content that will be hard for you, we will have in the notes for the episode when you could skip ahead to after the story if you feel like you know the gist but don't want to hear the details. It was tough.
And I would also say that if you have children with you when you're listening to the podcast, skip ahead. And maybe even this episode may not be a great one for kids.
So I obviously can't read the entirety of Euripides' Medea. It's a stage play. And of course, that means that it would be quite long if I were to do that. So we got together and chose some excerpts to do to get the gist, but keep things more brief. Since I'll be skipping around, there will be times where I add in context of stuff that's happened that I did not directly read. And then I will also be reading stage directions and trying to do individualized voices for the characters. So bear with me. We begin in front of Medea's house in Corinth. Enter from the house Medea's nurse. How I wish the Argo never had reached the land of Colchis, skimming through the blue Symplegades, nor ever had fallen in the glades of Pelion, the smitten fir tree to furnish oars for the hands of heroes who in Peleus' name attempted the golden fleece. For then my mistress Medea would not have sailed for the towers of the land of Iolcus, her heart on fire with passionate love for Jason. Nor would she have persuaded the daughters of Peleus to kill their father, and now be living here in Corinth with her husband and children. She gave pleasure to the people of her land of exile, and she herself helped Jason in every way. This is indeed the greatest salvation of all, for the wife not to stand apart from the husband. But now there's hatred everywhere. Love is diseased, for, deserting his own children and my mistress, Jason has taken a royal wife to his bed, the daughter of the ruler of this land, Creon. And poor Medea is slighted and cries aloud on the vows they made to each other. The right hands clasped in eternal promise. She calls upon the gods to witness what sort of return Jason has made to her love. She lies without food and gives herself up to suffering. wasting away every moment of the day in tears. So it has gone since she knew herself slighted by him, not stirring an eye, not moving her face from the ground, no more than either a rock or surging sea water. She listens when she is given friendly advice, except that sometimes she twists back her white neck and moans to herself, calling out on her father's name, and her land and her home betrayed when she came away with a man who now is determined to dishonor her. Poor creature! She has discovered by her sufferings what it means to one not to have lost one's own country. She has turned from the children and does not like to see them. I am afraid she may think of some dreadful thing, for her heart is violent. She will never put up with the treatment she is getting. I know and fear her, lest she may sharpen a sword and thrust to the heart, stealing into the palace where the bed is made, or even kill the king and the new-wedded groom, and thus bring a greater misfortune on herself. She's a strange woman. I know it won't be easy to make an enemy of her and come off best. But here the children come. They have finished playing. They have no thought at all of their mother's trouble. Indeed, it is not usual for the young to grieve. Enter from the right the slave who is the tutor to Medea's 2 small children. The children follow him.
I heard a person saying that Creon, ruler of the land, intends to drive these children and their mother in exile from Corinth. But whether what he said is really true or not, I do not know. I pray that it may not be true.
And will Jason put up with it that his children should suffer so, though he's no friend to their mother?
Old ties give place to new ones. As for Jason, he no longer has a feeling for this house of ours.
Do you hear, children, what a father he is to you? I wish he were dead, but no, he is still my master. Yet certainly he has proved unkind to his dear ones.
What's strange in that? Have you only just discovered that everyone loves himself more than his neighbor? Some have good reason. Others get something out of it. So Jason neglects his children for the new bride.
Medea is heard inside the house, and the tutor takes the children inside. Ah, I have suffered. What should be wept for bitterly? I hate you, children of a hateful mother. I curse you and your father. Let the whole house crash. Ah, I pity you, poor creature. How can your children share in their father's wickedness? Why do you hate them? Oh, children, how much I fear that something may happen. Great Themis, Lady Artemis, behold the things I suffer, though I made him promise, my hateful husband. I pray that I may see him and his bride and all their palace shattered, for the wrong they dare do me without cause. Oh, my father, oh, my country, in what dishonor I left you, killing my own brother for it. I let go all my life's joy, my friends. I only want to die. It was everything to me to think well of one man, and he, my own husband, has turned out wholly vile. This much, then, is the service I would beg from you, if I can find the means or devise any scheme, to pay my husband back for what he has done to me, him and his father-in-law and the girl who married him, just to keep silent. For in other ways a woman is full of fear, defenseless, dreads the sight of cold steel. But when once she is wronged in the matter of love, no other soul can hold so many thoughts of blood. Enter from the right, Creon, with attendants.
You with that angry look, so set against your husband. Medea, I order you to leave my territories, an exile, and take along with you your 2 children, and not to waste time doing it. It is my decree, and I will see it done. I will not return home until you are cast from the boundaries of my land.
What is your reason, Creon, for banishing me?
I am afraid of you. Why should I dissemble it? afraid that you may injure my daughter mortally.
Allow me to remain here just for this one day, so I may consider where to live in my exile, and look for support for my children, since their father chooses to make no kind of provision for them.
There is nothing tyrannical about my nature, and by showing mercy I have often been the loser. Even now, I know that I am making a mistake. All the same, you shall have your will.
Exit Creon with his attendants. By exiling me, he has given me this one day, to stay here, and in this I will make dead bodies, of 3 of my enemies, father, the girl, and my husband, whom most I honor and have chosen as partner, Hecate, who dwells in the recesses of my hearth, that any man shall be glad to have injured me. Bitter I will make their marriage for them, and mournful, bitter the alliance and the driving me out of the land. Enter Jason with attendants. Jason and Medea spar words for a while, until Medea says, There is no need to put on the airs of a clever speaker, for one word will lay you flat. If you were not a coward, you would not have married behind my back, but discussed it with me first. And you, no doubt, would have furthered the proposal if I had told you of it. You who even now are incapable of controlling your bitter temper. It was not that. No, you thought it was not respectable, as you got on in years, to have a foreign wife.
Make sure of this. It was not because of a woman I made the royal alliance in which I now live. But as I said before, I wish to preserve you and breed a royal progeny to be brothers to the children I have now, a sure defense to us.
Let me have no happy fortune that brings pain with it, or prosperity which is upsetting to the mind.
Change your ideas of what you want and show more sense. Do not consider painful what is good for you, nor, when you are lucky, think yourself unfortunate.
You can insult me. You have somewhere to turn to, but I shall go from this land into exile, friendless.
It was what you chose yourself. Don't blame others for it.
And how did I choose it? Did I betray my husband?
You called down wicked curses on the king's family.
A curse. That is what I am become to your house, too.
Jason goes out with his attendants. Aegeus, the king of Athens and an old friend of Medea, enters, and Medea makes plans with Aegeus, gathering assurances from Aegeus that she will have a place to go. Then Aegeus exits.
I shall send one of my servants to find Jason, and request him to come once more into my sight. And when he comes, the words I'll say will be soft ones. I'll say that I agree with him, that I approve the royal wedding he has made, betraying me. I'll say it was profitable, an excellent idea, but I shall beg that my children may remain here. Not that I would leave in a country that hates me children of mine to feel their enemies' insults, but that by a trick I may kill the king's daughter. For I will send the children with gifts in their hands to carry to the bride so as not to be banished, a finely woven dress and a golden diadem. If she takes them and wears them upon her skin, she and all who touch the girl will die in agony. Such poison will I lay upon the gifts I send. But there, however, I must leave that account paid. I weep to think of what a deed I have to do next after that. For I shall kill my own children. My children, there is none who can give them safety, and when I have ruined the whole of Jason's house, I shall leave the land and flee from the murder of my dear children, and I shall have done a dreadful deed. For it is not bearable to be mocked by enemies, so it must happen. What profit have I in life? I have no land, no home, no refuge from my pain. My mistake was made the time I left behind me my father's house, and trusted the words of a Greek, who, with heaven's help, will pay me the price for that. For those children he had from me he will never see alive again, nor will he on his new bride beget another child, for she is to be forced to die a most terrible death by these my poisons. Let no one think me a weak one, feeble-spirited, a stay-at-home, but rather just the opposite, one who can hurt my enemies and help my friends. For the lives of such persons are most remembered.
A chorus of people say,
But can you have the heart to kill your flesh and blood? Yes, for it is the best way to wound my husband. Jason is called to the house, as she just described, and she is seemingly remorseful and convinces him to take the children back. And now her trap is set. Then, when she's alone with the children, "What was the purpose, children, for which I reared you? For all my travail and wearing myself away? They were sterile, those pains I had in the bearing of you. Oh, surely once the hopes in you I had, poor me, were high ones. You would look after me in old age, and when I died would deck me well with your own hands. A thing which all would have done. Oh, but now it is gone, that lovely thought. For once I am left without you, sad will be the life I'll lead, and sorrowful for me. And you will never see your mother again with your dear eyes. Gone to another mode of living. Why, children, do you look upon me with your eyes? Why do you smile so sweetly, that last smile of all? Oh, what can I do? My spirit has gone from me. Friends, when I saw that bright look in the children's eyes, I cannot bear to do it. I renounce my plans I had before. I'll take my children away from this land. Why should I hurt their father with the pain they feel, and suffer twice as much of pain myself? No, I will not do it. I renounce my plans. Ah, what is wrong with me? Do I want to let go my enemies unhurt and be laughed at for it? I must face this thing. Oh, but what a weak woman, even to admit to my mind these soft arguments. Children, go into the house. And he whom law forbids to stand in attendance at my sacrifices, let him see to it. I shall not mar my handiwork. She calls the children closer to her. Come, children, give me your hands. Give your mother your hands to kiss them. Oh, the dear hands. And oh, how dear are these lips to me, and the generous eyes, and the bearing of my children. I wish you happiness, but not here in this world. What is here your father took? Oh, how good to hold you. How delicate the skin. How sweet the breath of children. Go. I am no longer able, no longer to look upon you. I am overcome by sorrow. The children go into the house. I know indeed what evil I intend to do. But stronger than all my afterthoughts is my fury. Fury that brings upon mortals the greatest evils. She goes out to the right, toward the royal palace. The scene is set before the palace, and then, awaiting word of her plan carried out, a messenger enters and relates to Medea the story of what took place, that her children entered with gifts, and eventually Creon's daughter accepted the gifts, put them on, was killed horribly by the poisons, and when Creon came and saw his daughter, not knowing exactly what transpired, he fell upon her corpse and wrapped his arms around her and kissed her, distraught, and then, of course, took in the poison himself, as she described, and also died. Having heard the success of her plan, she then rushes into the house to then dispatch her children. A cry from one of the children is heard. Outside the house are a chorus of people representing the townsfolk, the womenfolk. Do you hear the cry? Do you hear the children's cry? Oh, you hard heart! Oh, woman fated for evil! One of the children from within. What can I do, and how escape my mother's hands? Oh, my dear brother, I cannot tell. We are lost. Shall I enter the house? Oh, surely I should defend the children from murder. Oh, help us, in God's name, for now we need your help. Now we are close to it. We are trapped by the sword. Enter Jason with attendants. Jason accuses Medea and calls her
hateful and many other insults. They exchange lots of words back and forth until Medea says, "Hate me, but I tire of your barking bitterness. And I of yours. It is easier to leave you." "How then? What shall I do? I long to leave you too." "Give me the bodies, to bury and to mourn them." "No, that I will not. I will bury them myself, bearing them to Hera's temple on the promontory, so that no enemy may evilly treat them by tearing up their grave. In this land of Corinth I shall establish a holy feast and sacrifice each year forever to atone for the blood guilt, and I myself go to the land of Eryxius, to dwell in Aegeus's house, the son of Pandion, while you, as is right, will die without distinction, struck on the head by a piece of the Argo's timber. And you will have seen the bitter end of my love. Let me, I beg you, touch my boy's delicate flesh." "I will not. Your words are all wasted."
When we were talking about whether to do an episode on Medea, you mentioned that you found her particularly appalling. I think this is somehow more true when we hear about mothers killing their children than fathers. Archetypally, mothers are supposed to protect and nurture their children. When they show the dark face of the archetype, when they devour, abandon, or even murder, a primal shudder runs through us.
Yeah. We talked about that before the story, and I think it's also that I find it more revolting now than I would have 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been uncomfortable before, but tolerable is not the right word, but could stomach it more.
More distant, maybe?
More distant. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it.
What happened 3 years ago, Reza?
Yeah, well, in 2023, I had my own child, and now stories like this are just untenable. And so, for anyone who's watched season 2 of House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel, there's early on, and it's a civil war, there's a lot of loss of children of different ages, but there's some young ones in early season 2. I will not describe the scene because it is horrendous in the show. I could barely make it through that part of the episode. And apparently the book made it even more gruesome. And there were some people who said, "Oh, they went easy. It was worse in the book." And I'm like, you can't put that on TV if it's even worse. Right? And I think it's one of those things where you see these divisions of you all who are saying that you must not have kids because
what you can stomach for entertainment changes.
Yeah, I think so. Regarding Medea, it was perhaps less graphic. There's sort of off screen in the same way that Clytemnestra killing Agamemnon was off screen. But it's where we're sort of on Clytemnestra's side almost,
Yeah,
maybe fully. In this case, you have that pit in your stomach of something horrible is happening that the nurses are listening to, the townspeople are listening to.
And you know what it is. And again, at that deep cellular level, you don't need to see it to be horrified.
Yeah.
So there's a really interesting article that I just read on the murderous mother archetype. It's by Daniela Seif, and it's called The Death Mother as Nature's Shadow, Infanticide, Abandonment, and the Collective Unconscious. Seif says that the death mother archetype symbolizes a woman whose feelings or behavior threaten the life of her child. It is an alarming image. Indeed, we are so disturbed by the idea that a mother might be a threat to her child that Western culture has exiled the death mother to the shadows of consciousness. Visceral horror is warded off with idealization and denial. The story of Medea does not allow us the comfort of idealization and denial. She goes on to say that we see women who are not nurturing, loving mothers as unnatural. Women who kill their children are seen as subhuman.
And there's one folklore parallel that is a clear, truly parallel to this story that I want to quickly read the first paragraph for the Wikipedia entry. Anyone familiar with Latin American folklore may have heard of La Llorona, which is the crying woman, the weeping woman, or the wailer, translated, is a vengeful ghost in Hispanic American folklore who is said to roam near bodies of water, mourning her children, whom she drowned in a jealous rage after discovering her husband was unfaithful to her. Whoever hears her crying either suffers misfortune, death, or their life becomes unsuccessful in every field. Now, since it's a ghost kind of thing, the spirit is after the fact, but the action is something that she did in life and is basically the same as the Medea story.
Same as Medea, right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Medea kills her children, not because she hates the children, but because she is in a jealous rage over Jason.
And I think if there is perhaps a difference, it is that La Llorona was a crime of passion, spur of the moment thing, where Medea feels quite calculated.
Oh, very, very much so. Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. The mythic story of Medea is another tale of a larger-than-life or archetypal parent who is not prepared to sacrifice herself for her children, but instead sacrifices her children for the sake of her narcissistic pride. Medea, who is known as a sorceress, prefers to kill her two sons rather than experience a diminishment of her status in front of her lover Jason and the rest of Corinth. Her sense of self is so fragile that she will do anything to protect herself from feeling shame or vulnerability.
So I know that the answer here is that it wouldn't be the archetype otherwise, but I just can't understand opting for this path rather than running away with the kids and never letting Jason see them again, start a new life somewhere else.
So this gets back to the nature of the archetype and what their relationship to us as human beings are. Yeah, the archetypes are archetypes, and they are simply there.
Mm-hmm.
But we have choices about how we relate to them. And that is what makes us either ethical and decent human beings or horrible monsters. I don't think there's any parent who hasn't had a moment of, I need you to stop existing about their child, right?
Uh-huh.
But we can either dive into that archetypal energy, or we can say, no, I'm not going to act on that. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to tell my partner that they need to step in for a half an hour. I'm going to just grit my teeth and clean the Cheerios up off the floor and pour another breakfast.
Although I do see a difference there, which is in that the frustration is stemming from the child themselves and is reflected back.
It can be as simple as, this child has woken up 4 times between midnight and 5 a.m. And if I don't get some sleep, I'm going to, right?
Right. But what I'm saying is that in Medea's case,
all right,
she has no quarrel with her children at all. They're not doing anything
right
to bother her. The source is external from Jason.
I don't have any answer to that, except that, again, as human beings, it is our job to some extent, hold our own in the face of archetypal energies. So Medea is unwilling to let go of her justified rage at her husband's treatment of her. You'll remember he's leaving her and her children for another woman. And in ancient Greece, this leaves her penniless and homeless. And she's going to be homeless because she killed her brother to help Jason and the Argonauts escape after Jason stole the Golden Fleece from her father. Medea gave up everything to benefit Jason, and he abandons her and their 2 children as soon as it becomes convenient.
And I guess, yeah, the context there is quite important, because if she had not committed these other betrayals for Jason, then she would at least have a home to go back
She would
to.
have just gone back home.
Right. Yeah.
Wouldn't have been great, but...
And maybe in that case, she would take the kids with her. Just take them, go back home. But it makes it intolerable or impossible in her mind to start a new life with the kids somewhere else, because she is now penniless and homeless.
Although, if you follow the story, and I'm not sure you read this part or not, she arranges for a soft landing for herself.
That's true. Yes. There's a lot of calculation to make sure she's taken care of.
Yep.
There's another point also that I was a little confused about, which is, if we're to understand that Jason is abandoning the children, then why is killing them hurtful to him?
I think, in fact, he thought she was going to leave the kids with him.
Oh.
Yeah. And that she would just go. I think that was his plan. So, yeah, I think he did expect to still be in contact with his sons.
Mm-hmm.
Medea will not accept the reality that Jason has the power to ruin her life, because she would then have to feel the pain and humiliation of being weak. She would have to accept that somebody was able to victimize her. And I think this is another aspect of this archetypal pattern that we're looking at, is how do we respond to the experience and fact of victimization?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us desperately do not want to see ourselves as victims, even when we are. Medea shows that denying reality, even when reality sucks and is unfair, can have terrible consequences. She's willing to kill her children to avoid accepting the reality of her own powerlessness in the face of Jason's power. Another reason Medea is willing to kill her and Jason's children is because killing them maintains a connection, even if only a connection through rage and pain, to this man that she's enmeshed with. I see this really often in divorcing couples. I mean, this is an archetypal pattern I see all the time. They are willing to harm their children in terrible ways to punish the former spouse.
You don't mean in terms of having the divorce at all. You mean specific examples that show up?
Right. And one example is in a shared custody case, a parent who financially ruined the other parent, which meant that their child spent half of their time in a home that was financially unstable,
Mm-hmm.
chaotic, and the ruiner cared more about punishing the spouse than they did about the well-being of their child. And I see that happening all the time. Or parents who are willing to use their kids as sort of, you tell your parent, blah, 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 even though they know that being the messenger in that way is
terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So back to Medea. Medea cannot bear to see herself as a victim. She needs to keep her image of herself as all-powerful, and she's willing to sacrifice anything to keep this persona image of herself. Her identification with the sorceress, a dominant and feared archetype, has to be kept intact. Her identification with the sorceress protects her brittle sense of self. So she can't simply be the human Medea.
Mm-hmm.
She has to be devoured by this archetype of the sorceress.
And you've mentioned it a few times, but I don't think we've necessarily discussed it, or it's at least been a while, maybe on a different episode, that we discuss what it means as an archetype, the sorceress.
I mean, I actually think that the sorceress and the magician are probably the same archetype, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are the archetype of that which has power beyond human capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the sorceress has, again, in that archetypal image, as opposed to the archetype way, has particularly feminine connotations,
mm-hmm.
in that sorceress doesn't really have that much power. I mean, Medea can't just chant a spell and kill Jason.
Right. Yeah, I think we've seen in some other stories similar elements of that, or in the case of Snow White, there she does have power. She uses it, but the story is that power being overcome.
Right.
And I think so many times, even if it's not directly confrontational, in Briar Rose or Sleeping Beauty, the spell is cast, but then it is
undone. Yes. And I think that reflects the cultural and historical realities that women's power was really limited. You know, an example of this is the witches in Salem. They're also really powerless. People were ostensibly terrified of them, but they could be caught and killed by human men with complete impunity. Nothing, they weren't going to be able to do anything about it.
right.
No one really thought they were going to be able to do anything about it.
And of course, you know, in the real world example, of course, they didn't have any magic. There's lots of fun urban fantasy about people descended from them, or they didn't have it, but, you know, they didn't have magic. And I think that the label of witch or sorceress is often a way for men to write off clever and knowledgeable women as cheating somehow, right?
So you know a lot about herbs and healing and, well, it must be magic. You can't just...
Right. And maybe I shouldn't say men, but people generally, that to conceive of some normal woman who's not a noble or anything as having this special knowledge that helps people. There's the cases where you've got a wise woman that the village reveres, but then there's also cases of if anything goes wrong, they
get blamed.
Right. They're stigmatized. Or there's an anime called Castlevania, where part of what kicks this whole thing off is Dracula in that story takes a human wife who is knowledgeable of the sciences and like even much beyond your regular wise woman herb lore. Like she knows about real science, and he teaches her, and they have this romance, but she wants to help people. And when she's helping people in a village, the church comes and has her killed as a heretic while he's out traveling. And I think that is such a similar embodiment of just what we can't understand, we conceive of as magical and sometimes in a negative light.
So back to the sorceress archetype, it really embodies both power and powerlessness at the same time.
Yes.
In a really complicated way.
Yeah.
Medea, in addition to being about a sorceress, is also a classic story of revenge. In the Oxford English Dictionary, revenge is defined as the action of hurting or harming someone in return for an injury or wrong suffered at their hands. And the example given is fittingly, and I'm quoting, often spurned wives have taken public revenge on their husbands. This is exactly what Medea does. However, she does not have the power to directly harm Jason, nor is she willing to experience her own powerlessness. Instead, she kills the things he loves, his children.
What's the saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face?
Yeah, yes. That feels a little minimizing of this, but yes.
But I think it's used in that way of describing someone who is hurting themselves to hurt someone else.
Yeah.
And I think in this case, you know, maybe there's even extra pain we're to understand because of the often special relationship of father, son, and heirs and all that.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So while Medea is rageful, the children's nurse is the voice for archetypal compassion and love. She also voices an obvious truth that Medea is unable to see. The innocent children are not responsible for their father's cruelty and should not suffer for it. The nurse says, "Ah, I pity you, you poor creature. How can your children share in their father's wickedness? Why do you hate them?"
I think part of what makes it all the more tragic is that she doesn't hate the kids. She
mourns that she will lose them, and she does it anyway. Just like La Llorona is a ghost who is sobbing for the loss of the children that she herself drowned.
Although Medea makes it really clear that she values her revenge on Jason far more than she values her children's lives or fears the pain that she will suffer after their death.
Mm-hmm.
Anger and vengeance make her feel strong. So again, we're getting back to that. What do you do with that archetypal experience of victimization? One of the things you can do is become angry and vengeful because that makes us feel strong and ensure that she's perceived by others as strong. Sadness makes her feel weak and cannot be reconciled with her persona of the sorceress.
And I think that's something that we can all relate to, is not in such a dark way, but in terms of enacting other emotions or sort of doing things to invoke other emotions to push down our grief, right?
Or our sense of powerlessness and the fear that brings up. Yeah. I mean, a totally minor example. My husband is stranded because the airlines are being incompetent and dishonest, the airline that he's flying. And I'm like, we should get a lawyer. We should sue.
Right. And yeah, you wouldn't win anything there.
Unlikely. Right.
But yeah, there's this feeling of helplessness of, oh, this horrible thing has happened to me. There should be something I can do.
Yeah, exactly. And here there's a place where I think Medea really speaks to this in a much more brutal way. She wants to make Jason suffer, and his suffering restores her illusion of dominance and keeps him connected to her. Medea says, "Let no one think me a weak one, feeble-spirited, a stay-at-home, but rather just the opposite, one who can hurt my enemies and help my friends. For the lives of such persons are most remembered." I mean, I think that's really the crux of Medea's motivation.
Yeah, there's a lot of legacy in both stories in terms of Medea not wanting to be remembered as this weak person and Agamemnon wanting to be remembered as
a great war leader.
Right. And perhaps not remembered how one would want to be, although I suppose you could say, well, they are remembered.
Yes. Yes. So Medea doesn't kill her children out of unbearable pain or even simply to have her revenge on Jason, although she definitely wants him to be hurt as badly as possible. She kills them to maintain a connection with Jason and to not appear weak. She wants to prevent her pride from being damaged. Medea experiences her ability to destroy as a restoration of her power, which she prefers to enduring heartache and humiliation. If she were willing or able to endure her own suffering, she would grow into the ability to foster life rather than destroy life. And I think that's another piece of this archetypal pattern that we can look to, that the capacity to endure our own suffering increases our capacity to grow life.
In Orpheus, we discussed grief and what can stem from an inability to grieve in a healthy manner. Medea isn't experiencing the same kind of grief, but I think it is a similar sort of experience. She is grieving from a betrayal and unable to accept it, so she takes a rash action to not have to feel the loss.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. In this next passage, we see that Medea, unlike Agamemnon, is conflicted about this action. She really can't bear how much she's going to suffer if she kills her children. She says, "Oh, surely once the hopes in you I had, poor me, were high ones. You would look after me in old age, and when I died would deck me well with your own hands. Once I'm left without you, sad will be the life I'll lead and sorrowful for me." However, this shows Medea's profound selfishness, even as it shows her ambivalence about killing her children. She's not concerned with the new life that she is murdering or even their suffering as they die. She's only concerned that she will have no one to take care of her when she's old and that she will feel sad.
It occurs to me that this story really blends a bit of our grief and Narcissus episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the essence of revenge. There's an inability to accept a loss, and then a selfishness to carry out retribution at any cost.
I think that's a really, really good point, Raisa. I love that. So tragically, in the end, Medea chooses her children's death over sacrificing her identification with her persona of the powerful sorceress. Like Agamemnon, she cannot sacrifice her identification with power and persona. In the end, her pride is more important than even her own pain. Medea concludes her internal struggle by saying, what's wrong with me? Do I want to let go? My enemies unhurt and be laughed at for it? Medea decides that it is better to suffer unending sorrow than to be laughed at. It is better to sacrifice her children than to experience the shame and sadness of Jason's betrayal.
It's quite remarkable the things that people will do to either stave off or in retaliation for embarrassment. Because in this case, there's other things at play. But
the fear of being laughed at
is quite a powerful thing, that people do terrible things at something that is, I would say, a mere embarrassment. Often, it doesn't really impact you. It's not a lasting thing. But that's part of why tyrants seldom tolerate comedy that's at their expense. And we see, for an at-home for us in the US example, Trump for his first term even often didn't go to the correspondence dinner, right? Because the comedian, as is tradition, makes fun of the administration and the president.
Right.
And Trump said, well, it's a tradition, but I don't have to go.
And clearly he's taken action against people who made fun of him this go-round. Yeah. And the tyrants in China. And there's something about that puncturing of persona that is both incredibly painful for someone who has a thin psychological structure, right? Who's all persona. And there's also, I think, something dangerous to the tyranny, because it shows everyone how fragile that person is, really.
I mean, we see the going after late night comedy shows, right? We see, I think he's got a lawsuit against Trevor Noah for something that Trevor Noah said hosting some event. And a fictional example in the movie V for Vendetta, there's a comedian in that who runs an unapproved script for his comedy show, and they bag him and take him away in the dead of night because the ruling party can't have that.
Right. So the archetypal energy of the all-powerful sorceress and her identification with its persona aspect, the one who can hurt my enemies and help my friends, kills her love for her sweet, innocent children. They cannot be human beings to her. Instead, they become objects to serve her revenge scenario. If Medea could have owned her shadow qualities of weakness and vulnerability, then she would not have needed to sacrifice her children. If she'd grieved the loss of the illusion of omnipotence, she may have grown the capacity to see them as the nurse does. The nurse is able to speak to that part of psyche that sees the children's full humanity and tender vulnerability. Instead, Medea prefers to identify with the mighty and feared sorceress archetype and the power aspect of her persona, and therefore they must die.
Well, on that note, so too ends our episodes on the archetypal pattern of parents sacrificing their children for their own benefit. These are dark stories and dark human patterns that I think leave both of us a bit shaken and nauseous. But we're going to be concluding our trilogy on parenting and individuation with Demeter and Persephone. And you've said that you feel this is a much more hopeful archetypal pattern.
Yeah, I think that, and we'll talk more about it in the episode, but we're going to be focusing on the relationship between Demeter and Persephone, not Persephone and Hades.
Right.
And if we look at that relationship, I think that we can see that as Demeter is able to let go of one type of parenting, grieve it, and move into a different type of parenting, both she and Persephone have more room to live fuller lives.
Great. Well, looking forward to that lighter conclusion to be had. But for now, that's all we have for today. Our intro-outro music is a sample of Seculos' Epitaph with the Lyre of Apollo by Lina Palera under an attribution, non-commercial, share-alike 3.0 international license. You can find the full version at freemusicarchive.org, link in the show notes. And if you like what you've been hearing, please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your podcast feed of choice, as it really helps other people find the show. This show will always be free and available to all, but if you would like to monetarily support the show, you can do so at ko-fi.com/JungianEverAfter. Also, Dr. Adina Davidson is a certified Jungian analyst. You can find out more about her practice at adinadavidson.com or her Psychology Today profile. We'll be with you again next time, but until then, we hope your days are filled with exploring the worlds of imagination and storytelling.